All right, let's move over to the defensive side of things. And as you might expect, there's a new coach leading the way for the Lobos there as well, and that is Nick Howe. He comes to New Mexico from Vanderbilt, where he most recently served as their defensive coordinator. What style of defense can we expect to see here from Coach Howe?
Well, everybody's going to get a history lesson again, and I'm not going to answer the question. Rocky Long was a 3-3-5. It was known as the Pac-12 killer. He did it at San Diego State. He did it here. 19, 20 years ago, the Lobos went into Missouri, beat the crap out of them. Mike Leach came here with air raid, held him to 24 points. Those were the things that Rocky Long were doing. Bronco Mendenhall is a disciple of that. And I didn't really mention, Jason Beck and Nick Howe have come from Bronco. They were with him at UVA and BYU. This coaching staff is a lot of guys he's worked with. Don't necessarily think they're his friends, but they've worked with him. I have not seen the defense practice. My understanding is probably not a 3-3-5 because it did not work last year for Danny. It's a defense that has kind of played itself out of football from everything I've learned. But this was a team that gave up 35 points last year and had costly penalties at inopportune times. So I can tell you from somebody who watches this team every week, my personal opinion, I don't care what their defense they're playing. No penalties and try to not give up as many points. Try to help out that offense. This was a defense last year that had, I think they were up pretty big on UMass at half, and they gave the lead right back to them. There were no halftime adjustments, and the defense looked like it could not stop. Sorry for the cliches, a nosebleed. UMass had some talent, but probably the same level. But man, it just was, from somebody who has watched this over the years, going back to Rocky Long, be a defense, a team that set the tone defense. We always have former players on our show, on the Pit Press Live or the Pit Press Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at the Pit Press NM and on YouTube at the Pit Press NM. Eric would kill me if I didn't do that. See, that's how I'm still a prank guy, because I forget to say those things. They might, we talked to Ian Clark, who was a safety. He's from Albuquerque. Later on tonight, we're talking to a linebacker who played during the Rocky era and when they were good, Mike Mahoric. They might not have beat you, but you sure knew the hell you played them, and it might have hurt your chances of winning next week. I've heard 2 former Rocky Long players say that. I think that's the mentality I want back here at UNM. You can have the Andrew Henrys of the world. I'm disrespecting Andrew Henry a lot, but Luke Wysong, Caleb Medford, Devin Dampier, these flashy offensive guys. And I know if you've played EA Sports College 25, defense doesn't exist on the game, and defense doesn't exist in like the real world. But what I would love is this team to show some sort of defensive prowess and the, punch first. And I'm still in it again because I love saying it. Mike Tyson, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And I would love that defense to have this, because Danny Gonzalez had that mentality in 2021, 2022, but the offense was so porous and bad to where I don't even think they couldn't even get a first down. So the defense was relying on them, and then you have turnovers, and then you're right 3 and out, you're right back on the field, and they were exhausted. So what I would just want to see this year, I don't know what scheme it's going to be. I'm hoping to learn that here soon. that it's just more discipline, which I don't care what you could be the 2000 Ravens, or the 85 Bears. And if you're not disciplined, you're still probably not, I don't know. The Bears probably could have still won games, but I don't think you're going to win much when you're not disciplined like that. And they weren't even disciplined in coverages. They got burnt a million times, and Danny Gonzalez was a special teamer and played in the secondary. So, as much as I love Coach Gonzalez, go figure on that one.
Well, Ryan, let's move over to the personnel that's going to run Coach Howell's defense, and let's start there with the defensive line. This line is highlighted by the return of their sack leader from a year ago, Kyler Drake. And if I'm counting correctly, it looks like they bring in about 6 transfers. What are your expectations from this defensive line here in 2024?
Well, you've got Kyler Drake, and then you've got Gabe Lopez. So there's some senior leadership on it. Gabe Lopez played it in the Pac-12. He's a Washington State transfer. He knows what's up. Again, with a lot of the transfers, the 2 staples I know that are Gabe Lopez and Drake Taylor, but and Cy Riley is a friend of ours, and he had to unfortunately, I think, retire due to injuries. But this was a team that I don't think they were bottom. Last in sacks, 0 QB pressure. And that speaks to volumes about how them getting burned last year in the secondary with busted coverages. There was no pressure on the quarterback. So that was a real big detriment. To have 2 guys that are senior leaders on the line and have been, Gabe Lopez's Gabe Lopez coming from a bigger conference, that could help him. But again, hoping this year to see what they can do and at least try to pressure a quarterback. And then you've got the turnover. So again, it's one of those things that we've talked about where it's the unknown is the real question. But is it the cliche thing? Like, are these high motor guys, are they, as I've mentioned, they're working hard. So, again, I would hope that they're more disciplined and they're fighting to try to at least put a pressure on the quarterback, because once again, it was so porous last year. I know that didn't really answer the question, but from it being that bad last year, how are these guys going to mesh? I think that's the biggest thing is and that Broncos mentioned it. What is this team's identity going to be? Just not on the defensive side of the ball, but the offensive side of the ball. Are they going to look like they did last year? Are they going to be a different unit? Are they going to play better? Because, again, undisciplined and penalties.
Yeah, pressure is definitely the name of the game, and I think it's even more of a key when you're playing at 3-3-5. Like you've got to generate that pressure. Let's move over to the linebackers. So they have some nice depth returning here in 2024. They returned several guys who had some playing time from 2023, highlighted by the return of Demetri Johnson. They do lose linebacker Alec Marenko to Kansas State and Sierra Raleigh to graduation. Those 2 counted for just under 16% of the tackles for the Lobos in 2023. They bring in some P4 transfers after the spring window, and Tyreek Austin Cave from West Virginia and Randolph Kapai from Nebraska. But I mean, have you seen or heard anything from the linebacker group here so far?
Well, first off, I did a disservice to Mr. Drake, Kyler Drake. I think I called him Drake Tyler, so I apologize for that. I don't know why that came out. Tyreek Austin Cave has been a name that's been thrown about. He played at West Virginia. I think he got some minutes there. He's been a little nicked up in practice, according to Sean Ryder at the Albuquerque Journal. He is a big name that they've mentioned on the defensive side of things. I think I mentioned Cy Riley earlier. We know him. We're going to have him on our show Thursday. He's incredibly awesome. Demetri Johnson, I know, has some speed. He's got some experience in there. But I don't know. I hate to say it. I don't know what to expect out of these guys. It could be a completely different unit out there. But I know that they're very high on Tyreek Austin Cave. I think he's got a lot of speed. He's got a lot of big conference experience. And I think that they're hoping that it will translate over well. Again, this is a complete rehaul of this defense from last year. I think not only are the media members and the fans learning about this team every day, Bronco Mendenhall has mentioned it. He's learning something new every day, and they're earning, trying to figure out who the starters are going to be. So it truly is a crapshoot.
So the defensive backfield had some hits this offseason to the portal. 5 guys jumped into the portal from this room. They lose those, plus Dante Martin graduates. So they're going to have some spots to fill going into 2024. But this room is highlighted by the return of Christian Ellis and Derek Moore. They will be the top 2 leading tacklers returning from the 2023 squad. They bring in 5 P4 transfers. Do you think any of them are going to make an impact here in 2024, or do you have anything that we should expect from this secondary in 2024?
Well, at least here I could answer this question. Unlike the linebackers, Christian Ellis, Tavian Combs thrown there. He was like a Danny Gonzalez guy, like a somebody that Rocky Long wanted. If it weren't for injuries, he is a phenomenal safety or Lobo back. Christian Ellis, the same thing. Those guys are generals in the secondary. You have to replace somebody like Dante Martin, who I thought was going to get a shot as an undrafted free agent in the NFL. Not big, and that was one of the real bright spots on the defense last year. You could not throw the ball his way. So you have to figure out how to do that. I spoke to JUCO transfer from Dodge City. So if you watch Last Chance you've heard that name, or if you're in Kansas, the Jayhawk Conference. Bobby Arnold the second, he's come out. His numbers at JUCO were 3 interceptions, 2 return for touchdown. He had almost 150 yards in return yards on 3 interceptions, tons of tackles, couple pass breakups, a forced fumble. So you had somebody like him into the secondary with a Tavian Combs and a Christian Ellis. It's probably going to be a lot of secondary by committee, like who, based on personnel. But I can tell you right now, Tavian Combs and Christian Ellis, those are 2 guys to watch out for. They're exciting. I think if Tavian Combs is healthy, he's definitely he's an all conference type player. He truly is. I think he has that kind of impact and that kind of vision on the field. But just to piggyback, man, trying to replace somebody like Dante Martin that you had for 2-3 years there, that was a shutdown corner, and I think broke the record for most pass breakups in UNM football history. That's a hard thing to replace. And then, 6 guys rotating out. Tavian Combs did enter the transfer portal, and I believe Andrew Henry did, and Bronco brought them back.
All right, Ryan, if you had to pick a defensive player to have a breakout type season in 2024, who are you picking?
I'm trying not to pick the 2 guys that I talked to in Vegas. Maybe Tavian Combs. Again, injury. He's been there. He's been through the bad times. I think these guys that have chosen to stay and come back, they want to leave some sort of mark. Again, that might not be 6 wins in a bowl game appearance, but it might be, as I mentioned with Andrew Henry, this thing is getting turned around. And I was there to jumpstart this under Coach Mendenhall. I would love to see him have a big season. It's a big if. He's been injured. If he can stay healthy, I think he can have immediate impact. Well, he already has an immediate impact on this team, but I think a healthy Tavian Combs, probably alongside Christian Ellis, they might be 2 very, very good secondary players.
Well, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thank you for all your support. And until the next time, we are the G5 Hive.